Welcome to the Definitive UFO News Show, where we dig into the biggest UFO topics to search for the truth and transparency and have conversations that move the needle. Thank you for coming on in. This is Mr. Rob G in the building. Let me know if everything is good out there, guys. That we got a good on the audio. Let me know. Thumbs up for good audio. Thumbs up for good audio out there. Welcome. I see everybody out there. Welcome, Jaquetta. Welcome, Simply Coco. Welcome, Kitty Catty Whack. Okay, good on audio. Great. And Miss Catherine Jones, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate showing on up here to the Definitive UFO News Show. We're going to have a great time here. We've been off for a little bit. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's crazy stuff going on in the world, right? We're pro-humanity here, and it's a lot of things that really affect the overall mood and the ability to, kind of lace up your boots and get out there and talk about these UFOs, because they haven't gone away. The story is moving forward, and last time we got together, I want to say, we were doing the James Fox live press conference. If you guys missed that, it is in our archives right here on the show, so make sure that you guys go back and check that out. It's actually a great watch, and I think something that really, came across, as we said that day, came across as feeling very authentic, very true as far as testimony goes. I know James Fox mentioned that he had an issue getting everyone visas to kind of come on over and tell their story. And you could talk about if that's some sort of government obfuscation or who was pretty much up to not letting that happen. Because when we lay it all out, this is one of those UFO stories, and I won't even say story, UFO accounts, UFO encounters, where if you look at the testimony, you look at the evidence, you have to walk away from it feeling that, yes, this is definitely something that took place. Right up there with the Ariel School, and which is obviously one of my favorites, and just very compelling testimony. So even though they didn't have everyone there, I think they really James Fox pulled it off. As we talked about today, the surprise guest that he had that came in with these ideas of different avenues and maybe ways to validate even further the testimony, which was I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he talked about there had to be some sort of flight manifest, right? Essentially, there had to be some sort of flight manifest. There would have at least been, I think he said 30 to 40 individuals within the military who would have been involved in such an operation. There would have had to been flight manifest showing something taking off from here, going over to Brazil, and then coming back. So that basically is stating that there are a group of individuals out there, probably in their 70s, I think he said, later, older years, who would maybe be able to step out and validate that the United States government actually took the step to go on out and pick up this extraterrestrial being and bring it back to the United States. And, I think we're kind of setting ourselves up for hopefully a big year, because there's other stuff out there related to that. I know he's, I believe, back in Brazil right now, and that's James Fox, still trying to follow up on some other things. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more, because it's all about the UFO story so far in 2026. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming on in and joining the show here, as we've been off for a few weeks here trying to get some things together. Hillbilly Herb, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up to the show here. As we go ahead and get ready to jump into some of these slides. So let's go ahead and get those up here right about now. And once again, the Definitive UFO News Show, the call-in line here, which I always say, just get your phones out. Just if you don't already have the number, add it to your phone log, your contact list, 856-843-3444, or that is 856-THE-DIGG. If you are outside the United States, which I know some of you are, dial 001 first, then 856-843-3444, or that's 001-856-THE-DIGG. That is a 24-hour line we have set up here for you to call in. You can just call in, talk about a UFO that you might have seen recently, some sort of strange encounter that you've had, something that you had, maybe when you were younger. And also, it is there for you to just call and say hi, right? Because it's kind of cool to do that sometimes. That line goes directly to me. You can text images of things that you may have taken pictures of, and we'd be glad to show them on the show here as those come in. So, appreciate all that as we go ahead and get ready to get into some more of this here. We have memberships available. You can become a social soldier today. Just go ahead and click on the link in the description of this and any other video that we put out. There's always a link in there, as well as the link to our Discord, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're going to get there. We're definitely going to get there. And we appreciate any and everyone that comes aboard and hangs out with us as we have these conversations to move the needle. That's exactly what it's all about. And we're going to definitely keep doing that when we surpass 1,000. We're just going to keep going because the conversation needs to get out there. We need to have as many individuals at one point, one time, to have the conversation. And I think that's where it's every person that comes in, every new person, it just makes the conversations that we have more and more potent. And I think, as you walk away from these shows and you go continue these conversations with friends and family, that it ends up being a situation where, we get the message out there, right? Or at least we get these ideas that we talk about out there, which I think is pretty important when it comes to making sure that we, get the answers that we're searching for, right? It's all about truth and transparency here on this channel, and we will continue to do that as we move the needle. Also, UFOCom 2026 Contact on the Bay. That is coming up March 20th, 21st, and 22nd, Crown Plaza in Burlingame, California. There's going to be a lot of speakers there. I will be there as well, and we'll kind of go over the list of who you could count on seeing there. Some names you may be familiar with, some names you may not, but I think everyone has, especially in this community and on this subject, everyone has a valid voice when it comes to speaking about experiences or things that they may be involved in when it comes to the topic. So some of those speakers you can count on seeing there. And this list actually, I think, is updated. I think they added a few more speakers, but as of the time that we put this together, we had Carl the Crusher, Jesse Beltran, Solaris Blue Raven, Paul Hynek, Misha Johnson, Rima Labo, Terry Lovelace, Courtney Marcassani, as well as Kathy Porter, Ron Reger, Robert Salas, Michael Stratz, Jeff Selver, Blake Sinclair, Blue Sophia, Daystar. We also have Ryan Wood. We have me, Mr. Rob G. Yep, that's me right there. I'll be what they're calling podcaster. Essentially, I'll be interviewing all of the speakers after their presentations. I'll be recording those, and we will be airing those here on this channel once I get back and do some editing. As well as we have Robert Perala, who is going to be MC along with Dave Scott with Spaced Out Radio. So make sure if you want to go ahead and get your tickets, caufocon.com. So the pricing, it looks like, is probably $159 at this point. Covers all 3 days. Should be an awesome experience, guys. Look forward to seeing you there. If you can make it, if you can't, totally understand. And we'll have videos kind of showing the speakers, and I'll be asking some really good questions, so you can bet that. So as we go ahead and get ready to get into the show, guys, we're not going to wait too long. We're going to get into it because really it's just about what's going on so far in 2026. We're only in the second month. We're starting the second month of the year. So you wouldn't think much has happened. However, I can beg to differ. I think we've gotten off to a pretty decent start here. And we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the things that have happened here. couple of the most intriguing things, right? So we talked about, and we will talk more about James Fox, and because really, I think he kicked the year off really strong by putting together that event at the National Press Club in Washington D.C. If you know, that's the same place where Dr. Stephen Greer, put on the Disclosure Project 1.0 back in 2001, and then also the Disclosure Project 2.0. I want to say that was in 2023. It was at least 2 years ago. And this has historically been, and also the citizens' hearing for disclosure, which was put on by Steve Bassett, who I had the pleasure of speaking to. I think that, those are pinnacle moments in getting us to where we're going to, and getting the hearings on deck, right? These were like mock hearings, setting us up for the ones that we're going through now. So definitely pivotal parts of UFO history. And this is another one, moment of contact, which it's not over, right? It seems to be this ever evolving story because there's more information to find out there. And like I said, we'll get to that in just a moment. However, one of the big stories is Jeremy Corbell, who has stepped out and has a couple of videos that he released. As you see on the screen here, there was this, I guess, triangle UAP from 2012 over the Persian Gulf. And it doesn't seem to be a triangle craft. It just seems to be three objects in formation, forming a triangle. And I'll talk a little bit more about this after we take a look at some of the videos that we have set up for this. Just a couple clips from Weaponized, kind of talking about briefly what this was. So we have Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp discussing this, and we'll take a look at that, and we'll take a look at the raw video, see what you guys thought about it. Let me go ahead and get that queued up, and here we go.
Has no audio. We recommend our audio listeners to watch the full video version of this episode. Like a slingshot.
Yeah, that's clearly not one craft with 3 points of light on the corners.
Right. So these objects seem to be aware and intelligent of one another, and they're keeping like equidistant as they fly. But then all of a sudden, you see one make this playful little move as if it drops back in the formation and then comes forward again. But again, this is a military filmed piece of UAP footage designated by our Department of Defense, or Department of War now, as UAP in formation. And it's pretty interesting movement. Its display of movement is what is interesting to me about this.
So pretty awesome, right? When you see that, I mean, we've seen this. If you've had a UFO sighting, a lot of the sightings when it comes to orbs, you see this type of activity where you have these objects that are in some sort of, and I guess if you have 3 points of light, it's always going to be a triangle, right? But it's pretty symmetrical, I guess is what you can say. And you see one of them, as he mentioned in the video, one of them kind of lags back for a moment and then snaps back into formation. Now, I have a UFO video, and a lot of you on this channel have seen that video where I filmed 47 objects, but in broad daylight, clear blue skies. And I've shown that here. I won't be showing it today. I think I'll do a show like the next show. I think I'll cover that again. But I do have an episode on this channel called White Spheres. If you go back in the archive here on the channel, I covered my UFO sighting, and then also MUFON reports of other objects that match the description. And these things are always found in formations. They're called flotillas. Most of these UFOs or orbs or things that are seen are usually seen at night. But the ones that you see in the daytime, they're not shining orbs. They're more like physical objects. And, I feel like, and obviously I can't prove it, but my objects were metallic, physical objects, broad daylight. And I just wonder if those same objects, if I were to see those at nighttime, would they essentially turn into orbs? And not really turn into orbs, but more so emit some sort of glow, right? Which is what when we see them, we determine them to be orbs in that scenario. But I don't know. So we'll end up taking a look at my video. I'm going to put together something, and we'll kind of rehash what I did before. But I think the objects that I filmed, when I see something like this, it just reminds me of that, because these are the objects that you usually see in formations, and they're abundant. And I'll end up showing you that on the next episode. So make sure, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, that you hit the subscribe button, notification bell, because that's going to be a good one. I'm going to make sure we present that well, and you're going to see something pretty epic on the next episode. So Jeremy Corbell, comes with another video. This is supposedly directly from the military. You can see all the markings on the screen. Obviously, this is going to go to the skeptics out there, and we'll have to see what they say about it. But I do have the raw video that I want to go ahead and just play for you here, which is the same thing we watched, but it should be a little better quality. And let me see here. It's the raw video. There we go. We're going to check this out. This is the raw video. And see, the thing that gets me as we watch this is a lot of this activity is up there all the time, right? So I often wonder, right, when we talk about skeptics, I always wonder, have they ever seen anything like this, right? And then in the moment for them, do they explain it away as something prosaic, or is it something that they never take the time to look up? And so the only time they are confronted with, hey, there's things in the air that we don't understand, is it only through videos, right? Or do they also take the time to sit outside and maybe catch something anomalous up there themselves, right? Because I feel like, in my experience with my encounter, and then other people will probably agree with this, is that when you have that moment where you see something like this and you know that it's not anything regular, anything normal, it changes you, right? You have that feeling, you have that moment where it literally changes the way that you perceive things. And I would just wonder, if you had a skeptic with you and you were able to visualize or see something like this, right, in the sky, what is the skeptic's mindset when it comes to that? Will they still walk away from it and say, no, it wasn't what I just saw, right? It's something that I wonder, and maybe only a skeptic can answer that question for me. But this was one of the videos that came out. So, I mean, I guess that's a good start, right? When we talk about we're only in the second month, literally 35, 36 days into the year here, to be able to get a new video, and not just one, but we have two, and we'll look at the second one here in a moment. But I think we're getting to a tipping point. We obviously have a lot of stuff going on in our country here and in the news that is definitely taking away from what we're doing. But as we've always said, right, we don't feel like, I think most people agree, that disclosure is ever going to come through the government, right? So technically, even though the government is putting on this show and talking about files and doing all this other weird stuff that they're doing over there, we're still focused on making sure that we validate what it is that we bring to the table as far as UFOs, because it's really not convincing the government, it's convincing everyone else, or at least bringing them up to speed. And I mean, like the rest of humanity, other citizens, civilians, that there is a presence up there that we should be, on notice about, right? And I think that's the goal. And as long as we do that, it kind of doesn't matter what they do over there in the government space. However, we do hope at some point, they kind of come along and at least show us the craft, right? Because we know they've retrieved craft, as we'll talk about more here with the Virginia case. Because it seems like anytime there is anything retrieved or recovered, the United States government is always mentioned as being a part of that effort. Whether they are the retrievers or the confiscators, right? Eminent domain sort of thing where, we rule the world. So, anything is ours. That if we want to take it, it's ours, right? Sort of situation. I think we're kind of seeing some of that being paralleled in our politics today. But as we move on here, Corbell also had the second video that came out. And this one was a little more interesting, right? And so I want to play because we had Merrick von Rennenkamp, the journalist, kind of, narrating and speaking about this more anomalous video, right? What we just saw is more of what we're used to seeing, right? And I can even admit in my UFO sighting, the objects that I filmed, they did not move at hypersonic speeds. And I guess as far as your perception of that, could you even see something moving at hypersonic speeds, for one? But my objects did disappear into thin air, right? Clear blue skies, my objects just disappeared. So that could be either they disappeared or they all shot off at the same time at hypersonic speeds. One of the two, right? I don't think that you could potentially detect something shooting off that fast. It may appear to you as if they just disappeared, right? So for my situation, it could be either or. But I can tell you for sure, as I'm filming these things all completely disappeared from view with no obfuscation. And we're going to see some of that here in this next video that was released by Jeremy Corbell, apparently through the Pentagon. And as of now, as of today, the Pentagon has not stepped forward and said, yes, these are our videos, which hopefully they do at some point. And that's usually historically been the way that they've gone about it. The video comes out, and then sometime shortly later, they'll say, yes, those are authentic videos. So hopefully we get that. But this one's a little more anomalous, displaying one of the 5 observables. So let's take a look at Merrick von Rennenkamp talking about this. I kind of clipped it up a little bit, so it'll be a couple minutes of watching there. Then we'll come back and check out the raw video and talk about it. Here we go.
Mushroom shape, let's call it a mushroom. No lenticular, right? There's no wings, no exhaust plume. I still locked on, and here it breaks the lock, so it appears, and then it just zips off. That is quite extraordinary on its face. So let's slow it down here. I think we're going to go down to 50% speed, and again, we have basically 2 movements. That initial, it kind of zips off to the left, the direction change, and then it shoots off.
Wow.
Yeah, that's wow is that's all I've been able to say for the last few days.
So it's clearly going away in this first part, but then you think that to the right is an actual movement of the object.
I do, and I think this, as you get down to 25%, 5% speed, it becomes quite apparent. And I'll run through a couple hypotheses for what could explain it, and then I think we can rule those out. But we'll let this video finish playing.
This was their examination of shape. They were doing kind of sharpening techniques to try to define the shape of the object.
At
We didn't
times,
do
it's
this.
almost vaguely gimbal-like, but
Mhm.
yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
But the movement is here. Let's watch this last one. Yeah, to highlight UAP shape. Their wording.
Right, right.
And if we're seeing this visually, not on the thermal sensor, what might it look like? Would it just be round that we'd see in the sky? Or
These are all known drones, and you'll notice that even in from further away and lower fidelity infrared video, you can still see the body basically of an aircraft and the wing structure, right? Even here, you can see the wing structure and the body of the aircraft clearly visible here. And then a quadcopter, of course, has a very distinct shape and outline in infrared, and it looks absolutely nothing like this.
No wings, no tail, no rotors, no exhaust, no plumes of heat.
Exactly. And just to my point about this kind of footage not being classified, this is all out there. This is actually footage from the exact same sensor platform, an MQ-9. These are all, believe it or not, what we're looking at is an MQ-9 taking video of other MQ-9s on a runway. And you can see we're in white hot, WHT. The engines in the back are hot, and they are, believe it or not, they're white. You see that, you see the exhausts, right, from these F-16s. Now, George, to your question, these look like these look like fighter jets. These look like drones. That most certainly does not look like any kind of conventional aircraft that I could think of. Most certainly does not look like any kind of conventional.
All right, so that is the more anomalous video there, where the object kind of shoots off. I'm going to actually bring up the raw video because I want to go ahead and take a look at that as we talk about this. There's going to be, and I can't wait, because obviously you don't want to just look at these videos and talk in an echo chamber. You want to make sure that this is vetted and that you have skeptics give their opinions on it, like the Mick West, and people who will say, oh, this is birds, or it's parallax, or it's some of the things that they may come up with. But, even just because they come up with ideas of what it might be outside of it being something anomalous doesn't mean that they're correct, right? And we'd be able to say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense that that is your answer. And that's how we kind of get to a final point of, is this truly anomalous or not? So on the face of it, it appears to be doing something that we have talked about being one of the 5 observables, which is kind of shooting off camera. I think last time we had something like that, they said that the camera moved, and is the reason why it seems like it shot off, because the camera moved and the object didn't actually move itself and shoot off. So they may come and say that about this again here, but I'll tell you, these objects, and once again, I'm going to show my UFO video on the next show that we do, because I want to present it properly. But there are a lot of these drone-like objects. I'm going to call them drones only because there really isn't any other word that we can use. And what I really mean to say is like some sort of unmanned platform, right? And I've always said, when you have the Pentagon or the DOD, describing these things as drones, right? A lot of people will take it as, quadcopters or military drones, things of that nature. But I would probably go even a step further to say, what type of drone? Drones from Earth or drones from somewhere else? Because essentially, if you have an unmanned platform that isn't from here, technically, it could be considered to be a drone. And I kind of think that's what a lot of these objects are. Like this, I don't think that there potentially is an extraterrestrial. If this is something not from here, I don't feel like that these things have extraterrestrials inside of these. I think these are more like, I'd call them probes, right? As if you can remember, Avi Loeb talked about 3-Eye Atlas, and when it went behind the moon, if it were to be alien technology, maybe that's the point where it drops off these sort of probes. And I think a lot of these things that we're seeing, gimbal, the UFOs I filmed, and a lot of these other, the triangle formation objects, I think those are probes and not necessarily manned by any sort of intelligent being inside of the craft, right? And I think it makes a lot more sense when you look at that, because there's so many of these things that we catch in the skies out there that it would only make sense that, you know, there's not an extraterrestrial inside of each one of these things. And a lot of them are pretty small, right? Little balls or little spheres. You know, you wouldn't imagine even a 4 foot tall sort of being would be able to fit in something like that. So I think in a lot of these cases, we're seeing just probes, and which means that they come from somewhere, right? Which means there's likely some mothership, and that may be where we talk about things being under the ocean. Maybe they're released from there, they come out the water, they probe around, do their probe sort of thing, and then they go back, you know, to where they're at. You hear a lot of people talk about, you know, going outside at 3 a.m. and seeing these huge triangle craft, big as Walmart. We're not seeing those, right? We're not really seeing those, or we're not getting visuals of things like that. They're usually these sort of objects. And if I had to put my money on it, I'm going to say that these are all unmanned, and they're simply probes. But it still shows that there's something in our skies that doesn't belong to us. And I think that's really the basis of you know, what we're trying to inform everyone of, is that the things that you're seeing are not made by human beings. And I think we have a lot of different cases where even the people who you would have suspected these things to belong to are telling you, yeah, they're not ours, right? They're not ours. They're not theirs. So whose are they, right? And I think that's kind of where we're at. But to get 2 videos out, 37 days into the new year, I think is a pretty good start. And that actually just happened within the last couple weeks here. And you can check out the full video. I'll make sure I have the links for the full weaponized episode where they talked about this put in this video once we finish this show. As well as I wanted to go ahead and get into the James Fox press conference, and really the continuing saga of Moment of Contact, right? Which on its face was already an epic documentary, compelling case. When you talk about the 3 young ladies seeing the extraterrestrial being, you know, talking about the smell, the sulfur smell, which is what we hear a lot about in a lot of different cases. You had the police officer that captured one of these beings and ended up passing away from some sort of bacterial infection. You had the story of the doctor who examined this being, or one of the beings, and then the military coming on in and just taking it, and essentially the United States government taking it from their military, right? And that seems to be the story in any sort of crash retrieval situation outside of the United States. It always ends with, and then the United States came in and took these beings. And so just think about that, right? That part you could almost take to the bank, only because you have all these different locations where these crashes have taken place. If you go back to the one that was supposed to happen back in 1933, back in Italy, the United States showed up for that one, right? We showed up in Virginia. We showed up in a bunch of different areas, right? So when you think about that, they're not just all making up the fact that the United States showed up to retrieve these bodies and retrieve the craft. You would have to assume that you know, they're all in on you know, telling a fake story, or they're all, at least that part of their story is valid, that the United States always steps in and interjects their authority and takes over the material. So if that's to be believed, then you come back home and you talk about the crashes here, and it's obvious that the United States government is Johnny on the spot, first one on the scene to take those materials as well. So it just shows that there's enough out there, for anyone who's sitting and really looking at the information to pretty much validate that this is happening. It's a real thing that's taking place. But James Fox put on an awesome presentation, live press conference. Once again, we aired it here on this channel. You can go back in our archive and check it out. A lot of compelling testimony, even though everyone wasn't able to attend. He said a lot of people that they tried to get visas for ended up being denied at the last minute. But he was able to get the doctor to come on in, which I think was pretty awesome. He retold his story the same way he told in Moment of Contact. And, excuse me, if you have that, the sense of, or let's just call it a BS detector, right? And that's a bullshit detector, just for those who don't know. You can tell in most cases when someone is being authentic. You can tell when someone is making things up, right? Generally, there are some people that are really good at hiding the fact that they're not telling the truth, but I'm not going to say very many, right? So when we look at all the people involved in this particular case, you can tell that the testimony is coming from a real place. Every single person, I don't think there was one person up there where I could point at and be like, I don't really know about that, right? I don't really know about that story. It's all cohesive. It happened in a town. You have all these different players who interacted with the being or saw something at different stages of this 2 or 3 day, event, and it all lines up. Their stories all interconnect in a way that paints a broad picture of what actually took place, right? So I think it was pretty awesome that he was able to get them to come down and testify in Washington, D.C. You had a few members of Congress who showed up there. I think Moskowitz showed up. I want to say it was Moskowitz. One of them showed up, right? And so it's about just making sure that we get that story. Like, hey, Congress, check this out. This happened, right? Here's all the witnesses. If you want to speak to them, they're in town. Bring them in. Put these things on record. And I think some of those things happened. I want to say that likely some of the people who testified also were able to speak to some members of Congress and kind of make sure that they put the story out there. Once again, there was a gentleman that James Fox brought in. He said he was contacted by, who said he could potentially help out. He had some ideas about, maybe some additional places that you could look when it came to validating the story. There was a gentleman who had previously been with the military and kind of just stated, the part of the story where they talk about the United States government stepping in and taking hold of this being and the any materials that might have been left behind. He talks about how an operation like that would have to, involve at least 40, different service members. And then also that there would have to be some sort of flight manifest on record, just kind of giving James Fox another path to look down to maybe gather information to kind of add to this story that's already compelling on the surface. So I thought that was pretty awesome. One of the best parts, one of the most unexpected parts, right? Because we knew the story, but to have that in addition, and then also there was, if you've watched The Moment of Contact, the re-release, which I recommend that you do as well. It's Moment of Contact, I think it's like New Revelations of Alien Contact, something like that. But they actually had, if you watch it to the end, there's some clips there where they have some individuals who were not in the original film kind of, adding some information to the story. So once again, this was hosted at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and this was the doctor that supposedly, had this extraterrestrial being right in his bed, Dr. Italo Venturelli. And if you recall his testimony, it's I I give people the benefit of the doubt in most cases, right? I don't want to assume someone is lying just on the face of it, and then when you listen to a story, then that in that moment you're able to tell if that was the right decision, right? To give someone the benefit of the doubt. And I just felt like every time I've listened to his story that I can literally, envision what he's telling us. And they depicted some of this in Moment of Contact, where he's like, he only saw the being for a few minutes. He didn't perform any procedures on this particular being, but he was within a few feet of the being. It was sitting in a bed, and he talked about some sort of nonverbal sort of just knowing, or not necessarily conversation or contact, but just some sort of nonverbal knowing or feeling of what this thing was feeling. So said it didn't feel, threatening in any nature. That he felt like it understood why it was there, and that it also understood that they were attempting to help it. And you have to think about, and I've raised this question before, right? What is the feeling on the extraterrestrial side of things when it comes to them losing one of their crew members? I don't know what they would call themselves, but when when we've captured one of these beings, right? I don't think we just give it back, right? Likely the government locks it up. I don't know what they do with it. But you have to assume that they're not just like handing the being back over to the extraterrestrials, right? So he has this contact moment with this being. The government, the Brazilian government, comes in and takes the being out of the room and takes it somewhere else, and then who knows where it goes from there, right? Supposedly to the United States. Do we still have it? Did it die and now we have it in some sort of tube, or I don't know. But the question has always been for me, do those extraterrestrials want to get their being back? Do they want their friend, their family, or however they look at this extraterrestrial being? Do they come back for it, right? And I think part of the question gets answered when you listen to the story of Moment of Contact, where they talk about a UFO that was kind of doing a grid search over the town after the whole incident, like it was looking for one of these beings, right? So I think if that happened, which I don't have any reason to believe that it didn't, then I think it shows that they do, expect to, if they can, recover these bodies. So how do they feel about that? How do they feel about the United States just holding on to these bodies and doing whatever they want with these bodies, right? That's always been something that I've thought about. And I think that could be a point of contention if we were going to have, some sort of relation or communication with these beings. Also, if that wasn't already pretty outstanding, there was a point in Moment of Contact, the new version. I don't know that this was in the original, but they had a guy who wouldn't show his identity that they talked to in the film, called himself Military X, and I guess is he some sort of whistleblower. He talks about, I guess, what happened with the being after the Brazilian military comes in to get it. And so he says that he ends up walking into a room, essentially, where they have this extraterrestrial being sitting or laying in a box. I don't know if he said this thing was alive or not alive, but he did say that he saw part of the body exposed, and he talked about it being that oily texture, the same thing that the young ladies talked about in the original film. And as well, there was a doctor who, aside from the Dr. Italo Venturelli, there was supposedly some other doctor who actually did an examination on this thing and did X-rays. They required or requested X-rays of the pelvic area, the shoulder area. I thought I had it on here. Let's see. Okay, I didn't include it. But basically the skeletal structure, the head, the pelvic area, they went ahead and did X-rays of, and he said he never got to see the results. They kind of just took all that information with them. And prior to the United States government coming to get the body, or the alive or not alive, I'm not sure what state it was in when the United States government got involved, but before they came to get it, there's a gentleman who I just showed here, and I think this is new, specific to the new version of Moment of Contact. This guy, Vittorio Pacini, he talks about there being some sort of video. He says there's a video, and if you've heard James Fox talk about this as well, saying that there is supposedly a video of the being that was taken by the military, like a 45-second video, and that James Fox is out in Brazil currently and still trying to get hold of that or find out who has that video. If that ever comes out, that's going to be super epic. And I think, if it's attainable, James Fox makes it seem like it is, then I think that's going to be one of the things that really kind of, brings the house down as far as disclosure goes. But before I show you this clip here, because everyone knows or, is aware that there might be a video out there, well, what happens? You go on social media, now all of a sudden the Virginia alien video is now on social media, right? I think it's fake. I don't know if you've seen it here. I'm pretty sure it's fake. I'm not just going to say I think it's fake. I'm pretty sure it's fake. But this is, one of the problems that we have is there's people that have so much time on their hands, instead of trying to get to the truth and really find this video if it exists, or, do some real research on something, they rather create videos like this. Let's take a look.
Meu Deus.
Now, if you recall, Moment of Contact, this is supposed to be depicting the bus-sized craft that was smoking as it came down and crashed on the hillside.
Yeah,
they just so happen to have that video. Come on now. And this is supposed to be the being in the yard. Somebody took the time to do this. Pretty ridiculous. And then if there is footage in the Moment of Contact that shows actual footage of the military presence, and it isn't this video. So I just want to say that. So, and so someone just got this close to the craft and was able to take this video, and we're just now seeing it after someone says, hey, there's a video out there, right? All this peculiar set of circumstances, and it's just people have so much time to do stuff like this, and I just think it's strange, and it just, I don't see what people get out of faking videos. But I think we can clearly, say that is a fake video. But I wanted to show that first because it just shows, and you have to wonder who's out there doing that, right? Is it just someone in their bedroom on their computer doing this, or is it, some element of the shadow government that says let's put a fake video out there, let's kind of muddy up the waters and kind of throw some stuff out there, because I think they know, they would have to know that a case like this and all the information coming out, they would have to know that a lot of this stuff is valid. If they showed up to get the bean and bring the bean back, they know that they did that, right? So if this a story is being authentically told, which it appears to be, there's no reason to believe that it isn't, that you have a situation where, they're going to want to step in at some point and try to kind of veer the path, or kind of misdirect if you're getting towards the climax, the actual, point where you can take this story to the bank. If you think about it, historically, they haven't allowed that. Anytime you have a really compelling story that really, in the end, if you can get enough pieces to the story, then you can walk away from it and almost say that this is proof that this happened. But it seems like anytime that gets close to that point, there's always something put in the way to kind of veer you off the path. And I don't know that James Fox is going to allow that to happen with this story, but he did include this gentleman here, and I think this is where James Fox gets the information of there being some sort of 45-second video out there. Let me let you hear this. This is a clip actually from the moment of contact at the end. And I recommend, again, you guys go see if you've seen the first one, you should still see the re-release here. But this is what he ended up saying. Welcome to the Social Shop, courtesy of the Social Dig.
I'm Vittorio Pacatini. I am one of the leading investigators of the Virginia incident since the very beginning. I know, and I saw with my own eyes, an alien creature kept in captivity. In this 35-second video, it was right there, one of the alien creatures with two militaries holding the creature by the shoulders. The creature was really ill, was not feeling good at all. They tried to give the creature some fruit and water. It didn't accept. And the reason why they filmed this creature without superior authorization, it's because they were pretty mad that the American militaries were coming to Brazil to take all these material, not only the pictures, the footage, but the creatures itself and the spacecraft as they took it to the United States. So some other militaries, friend of mine, had the chance without authorization to make this movie. And right now, I'm willing to put my right hand tomorrow on a Bible and take a live public lie detector test that everything I'm telling you is the truth.
So that's okay. So we have to validate his story, right? He says there's this video. He said he was there to see it. So hopefully they can get to a point where they can validate that part of the story. I'm not going to lean in on it. James Fox says he believes that video is out there. I would wonder how, if it is out there, how it wouldn't have, someone would have leaked it. If you're able to get to that video today, right, then where was this video 10 years ago, right? If it's in a place where you can get to it and bring it to the public, then you would assume it's in the hands of someone who could have themselves gone and leaked that video to the public. So I don't, with that being said, I don't know if that video is going to be attainable. And if it is, then obviously it's going to have to be scrutinized. But if it's attainable and it's brought to the table and it can be validated and verified, then obviously that's going to be case closed on the extraterrestrial presence for the world to see. So that would be a really big deal, and it would be a nice cherry on top for this particular this particular case, right? And I would be happy to see that, right? Because I think James Fox really is, one of the ones out there, one of the documentary filmmakers that really cares about getting the truth out there. I really genuinely feel that about James Fox. And I can't say that for a lot of the other documentary filmmakers out there. I think a lot of them, do it because it's, trendy, essentially, within this community to put out a documentary. You can almost guarantee to get people to watch it if you drum up some sort of documentary. But as far as your heart going into it and your real drive to want to get to that particular answer and not just kind of cash in on it, it's kind of how I feel about James Fox. Excuse me. And with that being said, he did this press conference where he spent a lot of money to make this thing happen, or got, had donations, whatever, however he did it. But essentially, he wanted everyone to share it, right? So he was like, I don't care, just share it. I don't care about, I'm not going to copyright claim, just kind of get this as far out and wide as you could, which is why we ended up airing the episode here live on our channel here. So I really feel like he's one of the ones that's trying to get to the truth. So I'd be so happy to see this guy kind of close a case, right? And he's been working pretty hard on that. So shout out to James Fox. We've been in contact on X, and I'm hoping to get a word with him soon on camera. So hopefully we can make that happen. He's pretty good about, he's doing the large platform circuit right now, but he's at least corresponded with me about coming on, and I think that's pretty awesome. So hopefully we get to the end of this. I am really hopeful. This is one of those cases that I think is pretty compelling, pretty authentic from, I don't see a lot of question marks in this story. The same way with the Ariel School, the Westall School, and a few other cases out there that are just, there really aren't any holes in the story, right? I think these are some of the, the ones that if you could validate completely any one of these particular stories, Virginia, Ariel, Westall, then I think that would be the thing that you could stand on to kind of validate this for the rest of the world, right? So, what a way to start 2026, right? Only 36, 37 days in, and I think we're already building a little bit of momentum. Now, one other thing that we talked about, and I just looked up this the other day to try to see how close we were, but Disclosure Day, which is what we're all looking forward to this year, which is a film by Steven Spielberg. We talked about Steven Spielberg had done Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where he had advisors, J. Allen Hynek, Jacques Vallée, kind of advised him on that film, which is why it still stands the test of time today. And if you look at that movie and watch it today, you will see elements of sightings that are currently being reported. The orbs, a lot of the things that people talk about and report in current day sightings are depicted in this movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I would hope and I would think that the drive, and I'm sure he'll go on a press run soon, meaning Steven Spielberg, talking about what drove him to do this film. And I would hope it's the conversation that's being had currently. I hope that this is what motivated him to do it. And I hope he took the same approach by reaching out to advisors or having advisors chime in on this film and really set up maybe a blueprint for Disclosure Day. But we are 126 days away from a prosaic Disclosure Day, something that literally could be, a film that has a huge budget for one. We talked about this before. I think this is what's going to stand out. This is what's going to make this stand out from a lot of the other films and things that have happened within the community, is that, when you have like a James Fox, he's doing this from his own budget, right? And he doesn't have film studio budget to promote Moment of Contact. This is more of a word of mouth, like we're doing here today. Steven Spielberg is going to have a huge budget for promotion, right? Millions and millions of dollars. So this movie is going to be promoted to places where people don't even talk about UFOs. They just want to see a good film. So this is going to be a moment in time where I think the hype should be so big that it gets the attention of the UFO community, obviously, but then the other part of humanity that isn't really focused on this so much. And then as long as he delivers in the message and what's done in the movie, I think this literally could be a moment where things change for a lot of people who are new to the subject. That's the opportunity here. And if that's the case, we're about 126 days from finding out. So as we get closer, obviously, you should start seeing more promotions, interviews, and we should have more information on it. We'll be covering it all the way up to the day it comes out, and we'll do a show about it, I'm sure, or multiple shows. But it's kind of where I wanted to go ahead and get this show ended. Just the UFO story so far in 2026, only 37 days in, and I think we're setting ourselves up for some really good stuff. 2 new UFO videos, potentially once they are vetted or verified by the Pentagon. James Fox putting on this fantastic press conference with one of the most compelling cases in UFO history. A bombshell movie on the way. Lots of other things coming as well. Shaping up to be a great year, guys. So can't wait. And I'm so glad that you guys came to hang out with me here this evening, especially after taking a break for a minute. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff. Life is crazy right now. The world is crazy right now. And with everything that's happening right now, Disclosure Day is really something that we need to happen. Not just the movie, but actual disclosure to kind of help shift how things are going within this country and in this world. We need it more than ever here in 2026. And I talked about this to family members all the time. I'm like, there's only 3 different things that could really shift the way that this planet is progressing. One of those things could be nuclear war, right? And we hope that doesn't happen. World War III. It's not in anyone's best interest for that to happen. You have asteroid impact, which obviously would be something so devastating, and we would hope that wouldn't be anything that would happen. The third thing that would be the thing that could shift and shape and redirect what we're doing here as human beings would be extraterrestrial confirmation, full disclosure. And I think that's the most likely thing to happen of the 3. And we could really be setting ourselves up for that this year. So hopefully that's the case, guys. Once again, definitely want to thank everybody for coming in. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. The UFO story so far in 2026. Make sure we share this show. Get the conversation out there. We'll be getting ready to do another show soon. I'm setting up a show for my UFO sighting. I want to make sure we lay it out because I got to tell you, my sighting was so amazing. Like, you would think, okay, 1 UFO. 47 objects at once is just crazy, right? And then these things seem like they were alive. So we're going to talk about that and more. Make sure you don't miss it. If you're here for the first time, we'd appreciate a subscribe, hitting the notification bell, sharing this show out to people who are just coming into the conversation as we get closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. And hopefully we'll surpass that and continue on. With that being said, memberships are also available for those who've been around. You know that. You can go to the link in the description of any of the videos that we put out here on this channel. Also, the social Discord, which is still up. They say this link doesn't work, so I'm going to have to check that. But the link is found in our description, so I'll get on that as well. Also, the phone number here for the UFO Definitive UFO News Show and just a social dig in general is 856-843-3444, or that's 856 the dig. If you're outside the United States, that is 001-856-843-3444 or 001-856 the dig. Once again, UFOCon 2026 contact on the Bay is coming up March 20th, 21st, and 22nd. If you're in the area of Burlingame, California, which is essentially South San Francisco, come and check us out. I'll be there along with the speakers that we have listed here. Once again, Carl Crusher, Jesse Beltran, Sarias Blue Raven, Paul Heineck, Nisha Johnson, Rima LeBeau, Terry Lovelace, Courtney Marcassani. Also, we have Kathy Porter, Ron Reger, Robert Salas, Bob Salas, Michael Schratt, Jeff Silver, Blake Sinclair, Blue Sophia, Day Star, and we also have Ryan Wood. You got me, Mr. Rob G, who I'll be doing interviews, and we'll be posting those interviews here on this channel once I get back home to edit. Also, we have MCs Robert Parala and Dave Scott of Space Style Radio. You can check that out at caufocon.com. Come and check us out if you're in the area, right? It'd be awesome to see you guys and meet you guys in person. It'd be really great to maybe have a drink or something like that. So with that being said, delayed but not forgotten, the After Hours Radio Show is definitely coming back here on the Social Dig. It's already set up, already have all the graphics. We have everything set up for this show. It's just the program that we're running is not, doesn't allow us to seamlessly invite guests in. We're having an issue with audio echo, and like I said, I may have to switch to a different platform to do that show specifically. But a lot of stuff coming here, man. So definitely make sure that you guys are right here with us. We would appreciate that, and we will be back doing the same time here soon. Same thing, same time. Let me see if anybody else has jumped on in here. I think Flat Sixer came on in. Appreciate you showing on up here, Flat Sixer. Let's see. Skip to Malou. Thanks for showing up here this evening. These are the people came in after we started the show, so let me make sure that we shout those people out. Cosmic Joe. Hey, Cosmic Joe, thanks for coming on in as well. Let's see. Who else do we got out there? Who else showed up before the end of the show? Cosmic Joe, let's see. And let me see. Ms. Captain asked a question. How does the U.S. know where the crafts crash all over the globe? That's a great question. I think, that's a great question. I don't know if I were to guess, maybe they are catching these things on radar and just kind of monitoring. And we talked about that in the Disclosure Day trailer, where they're in this room and it has like hundreds of small screens with different things happening on each screen. And we had the theory that part of the movie might be like the room where they are monitoring UFO activity globally. And we saw in some of those screens, they had pictures of UFOs. So we talked about, maybe that's what that is, where their sole job there is to detect and monitor UFOs as they come on radar globally. And if there is something like that, then Miss Captain, that might be exactly what's going on. So we'll have to wait and see. That's why I say hopefully Steven Spielberg has some advisors on that, because then then we know that some of this stuff may be coming from a place of realism and not just fantasy, right? And because Steven Spielberg leaned in on advisors to have so many authentic elements in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, then you would have to feel like that's exactly what he's going to do for this. So if that's the case, then you would have to assume that the things that are being shown are coming from a place of knowledge and a place of UFO fact UFO history. And if that's the case, that's why I said this could be the blueprint on how we should move forward, and maybe the effects of, the ontological shock, maybe that gets addressed. Who knows? I'm looking forward to it, but I think if anyone was going to do it, it should be Steven Spielberg. It's a nice bookend for his career. And if he's been paying attention to the story over the years, and then all the revelations since Lou Elizondo came out in 2017, then I think he's the perfect person to kind of formulate that and put it in film form. And we'll find out. 126 days until it comes out, so we'll see. Flat Six says maybe using our SBIR satellite system, we could track anything that comes into the atmosphere. That's kind of what I'm feeling like, right? Because that's the only way they can know, because they're there so quickly after an event happens that they have to be, proactively monitoring that sort of activity. They have to be, because they show up so quickly to kind of take over the scene. So it makes sense. And Skip to Malu agrees and says, yep, that is probably it. So with that being said, guys, again, fun show. Glad to be back here. And sorry it took so long to get this back together, right? But like I said, this is a pro-humanity channel, and there's a lot of things in the world that are negatively affecting humanity right now. And because of that, that affects me personally, on a personal level. And as much as we don't really talk politics and get into things like that, this is the social dig, and we do address social issues. So I'm kind of torn between, dealing with some of this social stuff and kind of venting some of it. So, I don't want anyone to be surprised if we have a conversation, if this stuff doesn't start getting better, if we have a conversation or two on that, because that's technically kind of what this channel is built for, guys. And I care about how everybody feels at the end of the day. And I just feel like, it's cool to talk about UFOs, but, we're also facing a time in humanity's history where, even though, UFOs is the biggest thing to happen to humanity, at the exact same time we're experiencing one of the biggest lows, emotionally in humanity's history. And it's like, how do you balance those two things? And that's kind of where we're at here. And like I said, because of that, we have a voice here to talk about things like that. And if I do address it, it won't be political. It'll be, more so of how can we as human beings get to a better place, if anything, right? So I kind of want to leave you guys with that, and we will get back to the conversation here shortly. I'm going to put together the show for the UFOs. We're going to present that because the objects I filmed have been seen globally, and I'm going to lay out the case for you. So make sure you hit the notification bell. I'll get that show set up, and we'll be right back here on the Definitive UFO News Show, guys. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys. Have a great rest of your night. Share this show. Oh, also, please take a moment and hit the like button. That's very, very important that we get those likes up as high as possible. And leave a comment if you can, because when you leave a comment, that kind of lets YouTube know that you were kind of interacting with the show. So it would be very helpful if you could stop for a moment, leave a comment, hit the like button. It'd be appreciated. Until next time, guys, I'll see you right back here on this channel, and we're going to get into some good stuff. I guarantee it. Have a great rest of your night. Take care.